Okay, great. Okay, again, today's workshop is on DBE and ACDBE certification. The workshop agenda for today will be going through the DBE and ACDBE program. We're going to go through the program requirements, the certification process, a little bit about the application to become certified, and then the benefits of becoming DBE and/or ACDBE certified by the City of Chicago, and also what will happen once you are certified. The DPS mission statement. DPS is the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services for the City of Chicago. We pledge to work together as a team and with our customers to guarantee an open, fair, timely process by establishing, communicating, and enforcing superior business practices. Integrity, public trust, and the law are guiding principles. The City of Chicago is a federal grant recipient subject to the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration's DBE and ACDBE requirements fall under 49 CFR Parts 23 and 26. The objectives of the DBE and ACDBE program are to ensure non-discrimination in the award and administration of DOT and FAA assisted contracts in the department's highway, transit, airport financial assistance programs, and the airport concession programs. To create a level playing field on which eligible businesses can compete fairly for Department of Transportation assisted contract opportunities. The DBE program provides guidance for the participation of DBE firms in federally funded contract opportunities. So the DBE and ACDBE program deal with federally funded projects. The DBE is more related to like roads and other projects funded, and the ACDBE is if you're an airport concession. DBE stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise.
For DBE certification, is that all you do airport work?
No, DBE is, it's not just airport work. It's,
well, I'm just asking because the airports just released a bunch, like their spending plans increased a lot over the next.
Sure.
So does your DBE certification allow for engineering related?
Correct.
Okay.
So DBE will handle like construction related projects at the airport.
Okay.
And then ACDBE would be dealing more with the actual concessions that operate at the airport,
Okay.
and assisting like concessionaires at the airport. Uh, 49 CFR Parts 26 and 23 states that a business concern must be a for-profit small business which is at least 51% owned by one or more socially economically disadvantaged persons and whose management and operations are controlled by one or more socially and economically disadvantaged owner. Airport concessions can include businesses that provides management consulting, goods, supplies, and advertisement services to concessions operating at the airport. Groups defined by 49 CFR Parts 26 as disadvantaged include Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Subcontinental Asian Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, women, and other individuals that can prove social and economic disadvantage. So there's two parts. So number one, you have to be a minority or a woman, and two, you have to be economically disadvantaged. The business size standard. So if you're a firm that's applying for DBE certification cannot have the 3 years gross receipts the combined total divided by 3, so the average over 3 years of a firm, cannot exceed 23.98 million for the past 3 years. So if you're under that number, you're fine. If you're over that number, you would not be eligible. So it's 23.98 averaged over 3 years. For ACDBE, it has a different standard. That your 3 years gross receipts must not exceed 56.42 million, averaged over 3 years. There's a couple of exceptions. The exceptions related to car rental companies, that's 75.23 million. A bank is $1 billion in asset. Payphone companies is 1,500 employees. Automobile dealers is 350 employees. The personal net worth standard. So in order to be economically disadvantaged, you cannot, as a qualified owner, cannot have a personal net worth exceeding 1.32 million for both the DBE and the ACDBE programs. There's a couple of exemptions to that. The exemptions include the value of your personal residence is excluded from that number, and the value of your business is excluded from the 1.32 million. Okay, the DBE and ACDBE certification process.
I have a question about the network.
Okay.
Does it include, what if you have multiple businesses, but only one of them is certified?
Your other businesses would be included in the.
They are included, then
Correct.
you value of those?
Correct. The certification process. The following steps must be completed before your firm can be considered a DBE and ACDBE certified firm by the City of Chicago. You must submit an application online at chicago.mwdb.com. You must attach all supporting documentation relating to the firm and the individuals associated with the firm on the online application. The federal government requires an on-site inspection and an interview process for any firms applying for certification. It's okay if it's a startup firm. It can be at your house, or you can meet at like a Starbucks or McDonald's if it's a home office. Getting started. You will need the following documents in order to fill out a DBE and ACDBE application. You must provide evidence of citizenship or legal residency. You must provide proof of equity contributions by the owner. You have to provide documentation relating to how you acquire the ownership. Whether if it's a startup, you might provide bank statements and documentation relating to like the startup costs for the business, such as a corporation document, such as money used to purchase equipment. The business documentations for different firms. So for a sole proprietorship, you may provide a copy of the assumed name certificate. That's if you're operating under a different name than yourself. Partnership, you must provide copies of the partnership agreement and the assumed name certificate. For a limited liability company, copies of the original and amended administrative agreements and the assumed name certificate. For a corporation, please provide the articles of incorporation and the bylaws. Okay, and also additional documentation includes W-2s and or 1099 forms for the current and previous 2 years for the owners, 3 years of signed individual federal corporation tax returns, 3 years of federal corporate tax returns and personal tax returns, financial statements including balance sheet and income and expense statements. If you don't have any of these documents, it may be fine. Like, for example, if it's a startup firm, you don't have tax returns for the corporation. A simple signed statement indicating why is also acceptable. Okay, for the on-site review and the interview, the federal regulations require that a on-site interview and site inspection is required. Depending on the circumstance, a firm may or may not be notified when the site inspection interview will occur. In almost all circumstances, you'll be notified in advance with enough time to arrange a site inspection. And if that time doesn't work, they can have another time. Approval and denials of applications. Important steps is to review the ownership to determine if the individual is disadvantaged. That includes if it's really a minority or a woman operating the business, and if they're economically disadvantaged. The size standards will be another step, and that's to determine if it's a small business. Personal net worth statement to determine if you're economically disadvantaged. Independence to determine if a firm is acting independently. Control to determine if the disadvantaged person is actually controlling the operations of the firm. Unlike the MBE and WB program, the federal ACDBE and DBE program, there's no fee to apply. The certification as a DBE and or ACDBE provides opportunities for participation in U.S. Department of Transportation and FAA-funded projects by the City of Chicago, the Illinois Department of Transportation, the Illinois Transit Authority, Metra, and PACE. The City of Chicago has relationships with a number of agencies that can provide assistance to firms. These are considered assist agencies, and they can help direct your business and help with the certification process. The City of Chicago's DBE and ACDBE program demonstrate the cities of Chicago's continued commitment to the success of minority and women-owned businesses. The DBE and ACDBE certification processes take approximately 90 days once all the requested documentation is provided. Once you are certified, we provide a one-stop certification. Once you are certified by the City of Chicago as a DBE and or ACDBE, your certification is accepted by IDOT, Metra, PACE, and the CTA. You can sign up for DPS and DOA alerts to alert you of contracting opportunities by the City of Chicago. All City of Chicago and sister agencies contracting opportunities can be found online. We provide you with a list of agencies that provide assistance to DBE firms. These are assist agencies and can assist your business. And then once you're DBE or ACDBE certified, you can take the certification you receive here, and then you can apply for interstate certification with the other states and the other agencies outside of Illinois. So if you,
Is that online?
it's online, but once you become like certified by the City of Chicago, it's a very common process to get certified by another state. Like most states have like a Department of Transportation, or some airports have their own certification processes. So then you can take the certification and apply with other agencies.
Do you guys have a list of other states that you guys acknowledge reciprocity with, or is it just in general, the certification just kind of carries everywhere?
Well, reciprocity. So there's it's part of the I forgot the name. I'm blanking for a second. But there is other states have their own DBE program. So the DBE program is in other states, and I don't have a list on it right now, but it's the Unified Certification. It's a UCP, and then it can be easily found online.
Worst case, can I email you?
You can email me, and I can give you a direction to that. But most states they'll take the whole state certification, and they'll do like a cursory review. And the federal guidelines indicate, like, unless there was an error on like the home state certification, that the other states should accept it. Okay, resources, you can apply. Okay, does anybody have any questions about the process? In general about the DBE and ACDBE?
I have a question about the application process.
Sure, go ahead. Let me get you the microphone.
Thank you. I am currently applying for the MBE and the WBE.
Okay.
Are these two certifications grandfathered into that application process?
No, they're not. They're separate application processes, but you apply on the same website. So for example, the local program includes MBE, WBE, VBE, BEPD. All those are like one application, and the website's a separate application for the federal program, for the DBE and the ACDBE program. So it's two separate applications with similar documentation that's requested on each one. The federal government has a couple different forms and documents required, and it's a different regulations as well. So I mean, for the local program and the federal program. But it's similar guidelines. The city of Chicago tries to base their local program based on the kind of the guidelines of the federal program to a clear process. But it's similar documentation. If you are working on one application, it's fairly simple to apply for the other certification.
Do you recommend turning both of them in together, or does it matter?
I mean, definitely, I'd probably do them all at once because the same person's reviewing each one of the applications, and it will be a easier process for the applicant because the same documents are probably going to be requested. So if there's a question on your tax returns for the local program, it's probably the same question of the federal program. So if there's a question about control, it's probably on both. If it's a construction firm, if you're a local construction firm, there's a site inspection, and it'll just be one site inspection if you're applying for all certifications at once. So like for the local program, site inspections are required for construction firms and trucking firms. So it might be simple depending on what type of business you have, and it's probably going to be easier because you're going to have all the documents available at once just to do the other applications as well.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I had a friend who did both of his separately. Just to kind of elaborate on your
Sure.
question. And once he got his MD certification, he went back for his DBE, and the system was just backlogged because a lot of people were applying, and it took forever. And some departments want the DBE, and they don't necessarily acknowledge the MD or WBE, but it kind of depends on which contracts you're going after. So, like you said, if you're already doing it, just go for it. Like, just bite the bullet, so to speak.
Sure, that's a great point. Everything will be reviewed at once. Sure, yes.
I went through the entire process. All I have to do is pay for the invoice. So I did everything. I submitted everything. I'm kind of lost. So once I do that, that's all I have left to do.
Okay.
Right? Is that how that works?
So did you apply? So you applied for MB and WB, I presume.
I did.
you?
Some together.
Right.
And
So
I had to submit all the documents, and I submitted everything. The only question they had was the control question. Once I answered that, it's like, okay, just pay the invoice, and that's it, right?
Right. Potentially, yes. So for the federal program, there's no fee. But for the local program, there is a $250 fee for the MB and WB application. So have you paid the application fee?
No, that's the only thing I have to do.
Okay, so what I assume occurred, which may be true or not, if you want additional information, you can email me, is that there was a cursory review by the intake coordinator. The intake coordinator reviewed it, may have had a question about control, may have not had a question about control. But in general, once the fee is paid on the local program, then it will be assigned a certification officer. And then there may be additional questions if the application was incomplete or if there was questions about your firm as far as like the type of business the firm operates. Is there inventory? Is there equipment? So I mean, there definitely could be additional questions.
I'm an accountant, so,
Okay.
so yeah, I submitted everything. I called, they just asked me more questions, and I was applying to another company or something, and that was it.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, once the fee is paid, then we'll be assigned to a certification officer, and then the application will be reviewed in detail. And then potentially, I mean, it's very common. Most applications, there's questions to clear up. There's additional documentation that might be needed. But it's a, every application is different. There's no applications that are similar. So I mean, it's a case-by-case basis on the application.
Okay, so then that's when, and then once they assign it, so I didn't know about the federal application too. So should I do that now, then pay, or should I pay first? I mean,
So, I mean, I'm not supposed to give any business advice to anybody because I'm one of the people that reviews it. I mean, it would make sense to apply if you wanted to get on federally funded projects, or it would be a subcontractor on a federally funded project. So it wouldn't make sense to do it. Whether you do it now or a year from now, it shouldn't make any difference. I mean, if you...
since I'm on the review, I probably should just go, and where do let me write it down, I don't even know where I would go. So if I wouldn't go on the same website that I can consider Chicago, no?
Correct. It's the same website. It's the same website, but it's a different application on the same website. So you'll have the same login information, you'll have the same password.
So how do I apply from there?
It's on the website, so I mean, you just go through the steps indicating you want to apply for DBE and ACDBE certification.
Okay, so I did the DBE and I did the WNDE. And that is a different certification? What is that one called for the federal?
The federal program certification is DBE and ACDBE certification.
Okay.
So I mean, it's on the same website. I mean, if you have any questions, you can call me about that or send me an email about that.
Okay.
You can hold on to that documentation.
Thank you, okay.
No problem. If you have any questions about the application, feel free to call me and I can direct you to the right place.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any private agencies out there for profit that help through this process, or that take you through the process, or?
There are companies. I can't recommend which firms to use.
Okay.
There's one right in the room, actually.
This is he was a former certification officer, and he has a firm.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you two can talk. Maybe you two can talk later.
Is there any time where, is there any options to expedite the process to be a DBE, to be certified for DBE?
Right. So DB, there's not in any expedited process. It's really just making sure you provide a complete application and go through it that way. I mean, there's other agencies. There's not-for-profits, which I can give you a list of assist agencies. There's a list on the website. If you email me, I can provide you the list. I think the list has about 20 not-for-profits on there as well that might give business guidance. But I believe most of them charge fees as well. I don't know. I'm not familiar with them in general. But there's not an expedited process for DB.
Okay.
I just would recommend submitting a complete application with all the requested documents.
So there is a CTA contract, and the RFP is due January 25th. I know now that there's no way I'm going to make it in for that time, I was going to be on there like as a subcontractor for the 20% DBE to house security dogs.
Right. I would presume it wouldn't be reviewed that quick. The city of Chicago, I mean, it's about 90 days in general. Sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's longer, depending on the workload involved. I mean, it's really a case. Some applications can be completed in like less than 60 days if it's very straightforward as far as like the business you operate. Sometimes more complex businesses, like, can take longer, depending on like equipment and issues with like management. So I mean, if it's like more owners involved, sometimes complicated, and make the process take longer. And it really depends. So I mean, some firms request like a number of NAICS codes, and if a code that they're asking for is like, if there's issues with that code, sometimes it can take longer.
Okay. Going to the application process, if you're an S Corp, I saw that it asks for the minutes. What if you don't have minutes?
That's fine. It's very common that all the documentation, like for a simple, small, one-owner operation, you may not have the documents.
As long as you have the articles of the corporation and
Right. It's important just to like provide like a signed statement indicating why the document's not available. So I mean, that's so like some firms don't file. Some owners may not have filed taxes in the past number of years. As long as there's like a reasonable reason why, a legitimate reason why, it's usually fine. So I mean, the application's reviewed as a whole, and it's not like you do one thing, you're out, or one thing you're not going to be approved. It's just all reviewed in general, and all the information's taken at once. No problem.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
So once I pay the $250, what would the review process be from there? Would I have to wait another 90 days or?
It's a case-by-case basis. I mean, it really depends on the application submitted and like the general workload, I mean, of the certification officer. So I mean, we really try to do a goal of getting things completed within 90 days. It's definitely 90 days once the fee's paid. And so it's, application's not going to be reviewed in detail until the fee is paid. There's a cursory review that occurs once it's submitted, and before an invoice is generated, it's issued to an applicant. So I mean, if a firm is not qualified, for example, if you're an out-of-state applicant and you apply for MBE and WBE certification, because that program requires you to be a local business, it will be rejected if you're not a local business. So I mean, that's the cursory review that goes into it. It's not in detail. It's just like a glance over probably the intake coordinator where I spent 10 to 15 minutes just reviewing it. But that's on the MBE, the local program, which is MBE and WBE applications. Okay. Is there any other questions by anybody? Anybody have any questions about the program overview that I didn't go into detail on during the presentation?
So she talked about this part at, is that how you go and find the contract?
Right, I'm not I don't really work in the contract department,
Certification.
just in certification, but there's on the DPS website, there's the buy-in plan by the city, which they'll issue like most city contracts are going to be on that website, and they're reviewed, and you can look at like the request for proposals and place a bid on the contracts. So I mean, becoming a certified vendor will help you. It can help you in two ways. It might help you to bid on the contracts available on the City of Chicago's DPS website, but it also may help you become a subcontractor on like a Primes contract that may have won that, may have been awarded the contract with me directly. You can become a subcontractor on those contracts as well.
So then when you become a subcontractor, you work with the person that won the prize?
Right. For example, if you're a subcontractor, you're completing work on a Primes contract. So subcontractor, it's like for like construction for like a house. You're gonna have, in many cases, there's a general contractor. The general contractor might be considered a prime contract, and then they're gonna hire like a plumber as a subcontractor, an electrician or a carpenter as a subcontractor on that project.
So you'll contact the prime contractor and work with them on getting that contract?
Correct, so you'd work directly with the prime contractor, and many of the contractors out for bid. Sometimes it requires the subcontractors to be certified firms. So it's important to look on the contracts available to determine that. So I mean, you might be bidding directly on a contract opportunity, or you might look at that contract and see eventually who's awarded that contract, and then contact that prime contractor, see if you can participate on the contract. So it also helps with like being a participant.
The primes are listed?
Um,
I just missed that last part.
I believe all contracts that the city of Chicago does, I mean, if you look on there, I believe every contract that's awarded is listed online. So every time there's a bid opportunity, it's listed.
The best way to do this is you go on the buying plan so that you know kind of in advance like what contracts are coming up. And then as soon as those contracts are put onto the City of Chicago's website, what happens is there's something called a pre-bid conference. I think it's like this year, where that's the opportunity for all of the primes or any subcontractors to kind of, that's where you go. You go to the pre-bid conference, and then presumably try to kind of explain who you are. Because then, once they bid on the contract, that's when they have to list who they're going to be, listing as subcontractors and how they're going to be fulfilling MBEWP locals. That's on cityofchicago.org/contracts. I think it shows all of the upcoming pre-bids.
But the city of Chicago also does provide like a list of all winning bidders online as well. And all bids submitted, everything is supposed to be transparent and open.
Do you guys do any workshops on accounting requirements for City of Chicago contracts? Do you know that?
I can
'Cause
check
I know
for
it's
you.
like cost plus accounting, or is it for the City of Chicago? Or
Let me check. We just released I believe that it's out here. I can provide it for you after the class. And I think
worst case, I can email you.
you can email me. We
Okay.
just issued a new class schedule. I believe there's a class on like contract compliance, and maybe we'll help you on that.
Okay.
If not, I can direct you to the right people. All right, unless anybody has any other questions, I'll turn the microphone off. You can ask me questions after as well.